represent God. They're the most innocent and like God, and that's why the devil wants to hurt them.
The room went completely silent. Under the bright lights of a small stage, actor Jim Caviezel suddenly stopped speaking. His voice cracked, and for a moment he looked like he was searching for the right words. This wasn't the confident Hollywood actor people remembered from blockbuster films. This was a man who looked deeply shaken. Then he said something that made the audience lean forward. He started talking about children, about girls, and about a story he believed the world had forgotten. According to Caviezel, when people talk about child trafficking or abuse scandals, they often focus on the biggest headlines.
Done everything they could to stop it, as they did this with the Passion of the Christ.
But sometimes, he said, the most painful stories are the ones that quietly disappear from the news cycle. And that's when he brought up a place thousands of miles away from Hollywood, a school in South Africa that once symbolized hope for hundreds of young girls. A school connected to one of the most powerful media figures in the world. Caviezel wasn't yelling. He wasn't attacking anyone. In fact, he looked emotional, almost heartbroken, as he talked about children who were supposed to be protected.
I've never been near a puff party. Never.
Because, in his words, when children are promised safety and opportunity, and something goes wrong, the world should never stop asking questions.
Everyone was told, from Rupert Murdoch, from Fox, to every studio, look, if you touch this thing, you will be out, you will be done. You'll be finished in 3 years.
But to understand why Caviezel got so emotional talking about this story, you have to go back years earlier, to a moment when the world celebrated what looked like one of the most generous acts in modern philanthropy. Years before Caviezel began speaking publicly about child trafficking, Oprah Winfrey was being praised across the globe for a project she called one of the most important missions of her life. After visiting South Africa and meeting with Nelson Mandela, Oprah announced something extraordinary. She wanted to build a world-class school for girls who came from poverty, girls who had talent and potential but lacked the resources to chase their dreams. Her vision was simple but powerful. Give disadvantaged girls the best education possible, and they could change the future of their communities. In 2007, that dream became reality.
I was asking about the movie, and I asked them about that one particular part where everybody's talking, and they all cried out Epstein Island. And I went, oh, okay. Now I understand what we're...
The Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls opened its doors in South Africa. The campus was stunning. Beautiful buildings, libraries, classrooms filled with technology, safe dormitories where students could live and study.
Be a place of learning as well as living for them. We have to have a theater because this is a school for leaders, and in order to be a leader, you have to have a voice.
Oprah reportedly invested around $40 million into building the academy. For many of the girls who were accepted, it felt like winning the lottery. They came from difficult backgrounds, families struggling with poverty, communities where opportunities were limited, and suddenly they were being offered a chance to study at one of the most advanced schools in the region. The world applauded. News outlets praised Oprah's generosity. Magazine covers celebrated the project as a powerful example of giving back. For the girls and their families, the academy represented hope. Hope for education, hope for success, hope for a better life.
It's an 8-armed octopus, and if you take just out, that arm will grow back. You have to take the head.
But not long after the school opened, a shocking controversy began to unfold. Reports surfaced that some students had accused a dormitory employee of serious misconduct. The allegations were deeply disturbing. Authorities in South Africa launched an investigation, and the story quickly made international headlines.
With Naomi Campbell, he had Oprah Winfrey there with him, who entered the room and was swinging off his arm and just seemed like a very dear friend. And these, like Oprah, Naomi, Rita, and Georgina, they all sat at his table. And for me, meeting Oprah was like, oh my God.
Oprah responded immediately. She traveled to South Africa to address the situation personally. In emotional interviews, she said she felt deeply saddened and angry about what had happened. She promised that the safety of the students would always come first. The staff member at the center of the allegations was arrested, and the academy implemented stricter supervision and policies.
Island isn't the only island out there.
For Oprah, the situation was heartbreaking. She had created the school to protect and empower young girls, and now the project was facing its first major crisis. The legal case eventually went to court. Several students testified about their experiences, but after a long and complicated trial, the accused employee was acquitted. The court ruled that the evidence presented did not prove the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Legally, the case was closed, but emotionally, the story didn't end there. For the students, their families, and everyone involved, the events left scars. And years later, when Jim Caviezel began speaking about the fight against child trafficking and child abuse, stories like this one weighed heavily on him.
If we make this just about Harvey Weinstein, then we will have lost this moment.
Caviezel had spent much of his career playing powerful roles in dramatic films. Many people still recognize him as the actor who portrayed Jesus in The Passion of the Christ. But in recent years, he has become deeply involved in raising awareness about child trafficking around the world.
And anybody who knows me knows if there is a party, I'm the first one out.
When he starred in the film Sound of Freedom, which tells the story of efforts to rescue trafficked children, Caviezel began speaking more openly about the emotional toll of learning about these issues. During interviews and speaking events, he often talks about the vulnerability of children, especially those who come from difficult circumstances. And during one particular conversation about the global fight against child exploitation, he reflected on how fragile trust can be. Children are often placed in institutions, schools, and organizations that promise to protect them. Parents trust those institutions. Communities believe in them.
Are we going to let our children go? And that's a question, and people have to answer.
But when even one person in a position of authority betrays that trust, the damage can ripple through countless lives. That's why Caviezel became visibly emotional while discussing cases where children were harmed in places that were supposed to be safe. He didn't claim to know every detail about every situation. In fact, he repeatedly emphasized that investigations and courts must determine the truth in any case. But what he did say very clearly was that society cannot afford to ignore the suffering of children once headlines fade. He spoke about how quickly the public moves on from difficult stories. One week, the media is filled with outrage. The next week, the story disappears. But for the people involved, especially the children, life continues, and healing takes years, sometimes decades.
Why are they so opposed, so frantic in antagonizing Sound of Freedom?
Caviezel's voice reportedly broke when he talked about the emotional toll on victims of abuse. He described how children who experience trauma often carry it into adulthood, struggling with trust, relationships, and self-worth. It's not something that disappears when a news cycle ends. That moment when Caviezel grew quiet and emotional struck many people who were listening. Because for him, this wasn't about politics or celebrity drama, it was about children. Children who deserve safety, children who deserve adults willing to protect them, and children who deserve to be heard when they speak up. He said something that stayed with many people in the audience. The measure of a society, Caviezel said, is how it protects its most vulnerable. When institutions fail, whether schools, organizations, or governments, the responsibility doesn't disappear. Someone still has to ask questions. Someone still has to fight for the victims. And someone still has to care. The emotional weight of that message became the heart of Caviezel's remarks. He wasn't telling people what to believe. He wasn't accusing individuals of crimes. Instead, he was urging the public not to look away from the reality that abuse can happen anywhere if systems fail to protect the vulnerable. Stories like the controversy surrounding the South African Academy, he suggested, remind us of how important accountability and transparency are. Even the most well-intentioned projects can face serious challenges, and when they do, the priority must always be the people they were meant to serve. For the girls who attended the academy, life moved forward. Many students continued their education, and the school itself remained open, eventually producing graduates who went on to universities and professional careers. The institution implemented stricter oversight and safeguards, but the early controversy remains part of its history, and for Caviezel, it represents a broader lesson about vigilance. Protecting children isn't a one-time effort. It requires constant attention, constant accountability, and constant courage from people willing to speak up. As Caviezel finished his remarks that day, the emotion in the room was still heavy. He paused again before leaving the stage. Then he said something that sounded less like a speech and more like a personal plea. He asked people not to treat stories involving children as entertainment, not as gossip, not as conspiracy, but as real human experiences that deserve compassion and serious attention. Because behind every headline, there are real lives, real families, real children trying to make sense of the world around them. And if adults fail them, the consequences can echo for a lifetime. Caviezel didn't end with anger. He ended with hope. Hope that conversations about child protection would continue. Hope that institutions everywhere would strengthen safeguards for young people. And hope that the public would never forget the responsibility society carries toward its most vulnerable members. As the audience slowly stood to applaud, the actor who once played heroes on screen walked off stage looking deeply moved, not like a celebrity chasing headlines, but like someone who had spent years learning about the darkest realities facing children around the world and simply wanted people to care. Because sometimes the most powerful message isn't an accusation. It's a reminder that protecting children should never depend on fame, politics, or public image. It should be a promise every society keeps. And according to Caviezel, that promise is something the world must keep fighting for, long after the cameras stop rolling.